Hey guys, DiffTheEnder here again, and today I'm going to be bringing a video on Magic Penetration, this is Magic Resist, with a bit of AP, Void stuff, and other items also in it. So, the main reason I made this is because it's a recent trend for people to take Magic Resist marks, and a lot of people asking me about Ability Power, Magic Penetration, Magic Resist, and how they all work together. So today we'll be taking a look at that, and I hope you see it. Cheers. So what is this new phenomenon that I'm making a post on? So, this was initially something that Froggen was credited with, that's something he made popular. So if you can see here, this is a standard setup, you could say. You know, you run Magic Penetration marks, Mana Regen Seals, Magic Resist Glyphs, and AP Quints. That's standard enough. But what Froggen's made popular here is this bit. He's gone full flat Magic Resist marks because he lacks the extra durability in lane early game, as it helps him play better. Now, I'm going to be taking a look at how cost efficient that really is and how effective damage-wise that really is. Now, let's scroll down here. Let's take a look at these runes first. Now, with Magic Penetration, you can see that you can get a total of 21.21. Magic Resist runes, flat, you can get 37. Per level, you can get max 71 at level 18. Now, having said all of that, let's take a... what does 73 MR really mean in game? 73 MR negates 42% of incoming magical damage, which is quite significant. You're gonna be reducing a lot of damage. So the enemy is about to deal 1,000 damage to you, they'll only deal 420. 580. Now, let's move on from all that stuff. You guys already know that. Magic Penetration, Magic Resists. They can be considered to negate each other. What do I mean? Well, Magic Penetration subtracts from the enemy's Magic Resist. Magic Resist adds to the enemy Magic Resist. So, subtraction, addition, they all cancel out. However, there are small factors such as percentage Magic Penetration from the Mastery, Arcane Knowledge, or Void stuff. Now, this graph you see here, this takes into account that the enemy has a base MR of 30, and that they are using... and that you are using the Arcane Knowledge Mastery, the 10% Magic Penetration. So, you'd expect this to be linear. It is, it almost is. It differs very, very slightly due to the 10% Magic Penetration. It's not clearly visible, so it's pretty much negligent. How do you read this graph? Well, if the enemy has 20 bonus MR on top of the 30, so if they have 50 MR, and you're running 10% Magic Penetration, 10 flat Magic Penetration on top of the 10%, then you will be doing, light blue, around 6% less damage than you would have if you had 0 Magic Pen and the enemy had 0 extra bonus MR, i.e. they had 30 MR and you have no extra damage, apart from maybe, not counting AP. Now, let's compare this using setups. So there's 3 setups I want to compare using. So the standard setup, which will be this one with the Magic Penetration marks, Froggen's setup with the flat Magic Resist marks, and we'll include a control case, which is what the graph is based on, i.e. no Magic Pen, no MR, basically no runes, and we'll see how much damage differences that results in. So basically, this is pulling all the values straight off this graph and putting it to a table for easy comparison. So you can see if you have no runes and you go up against someone with standard setup, i.e. they have 12 MR, you'll do 6.17% less damage. If you're against someone who has 19 MR, 19 extra MR that is, i.e. Froggen setup, you'll do 9.3% less damage. Now these 2 rows and these 2 columns are what we're really interested in, since control is basically what these guys are based on, and you won't really go up against anyone with no runes. Now, let's take a look at standard here. So if you're running Magic Penetration marks, you'll obviously have 5% extra damage against someone who's not running any runes. You'll do 1% less damage to someone who was running MR Glyphs, and 5% less damage to someone who's running MR Glyphs as well as MR marks. With Froggen's runes, you won't be doing any extra damage even to someone with no runes, but you will be taking less damage, so it'll be 6.17% less against someone who's running standard runes, and 9.34% less against someone who's running the same runes as you, because they'll have 19 MR. Now, this is basically personal preference. It kind of rounds out to you either do 5 or 6% more damage and take 5%ish more. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You either do 5% more damage and take 5% more damage, or you do 5% less damage and take 5% less damage. Rough values, it's personal choice on what you want to do actually. So if you're a really aggressive player, you could either go for the MR because you think you take lots of damage while you're fighting, or you can either go for the magic penetration because you want to do more damage. It's completely personal preference, but I'll try and justify which option to take using item builds and late game viability. So, speaking of late game and build paths, let's take a look at the common items that a mage can get from magic resist. So they can get an Abyssal Scepter, Aegis of the Legion, which a support would have, and naturally they get MR from, Merc Treads, viable option, Banshee's Veil, Quicksilver Sash, Guardian Angel. So these are some common items that a mage, AP mid, AP carry will get magic resist from through the course of the game. Now similarly, common items that mages can get magic penetration from are Sorcerer's Shoes, and Abyssal Scepter, and Void Staff. These are common items. Haunting Guise, not so common, but I've included in this list anyway because it's the only other source of magic penetration. Now, obviously there's a lot more options for magic resist than magic penetration, and that's just how it is. Now, before I talk about Abyssal and Haunting Guise as possible item builds for your champions, I want to talk about the Void Staff, because the Void Staff offers 40% extra magic penetration. So remember how I said we've got 10% magic penetration from Arcane Knowledge Mastery? That's the 9th point in the offense tree. You can get 40% extra from Void Staff, and since it stacks multiplicatively, that ends up being 46% magic penetration on top of flat magic penetration you may have. Now, it's a common belief that percentage magic penetration is affected by flat magic penetration. This is true. I'll give you an example here. If your enemy has 100 MR and you penetrate 20 flat and 10%, the result is that they have 72 MR. So 20 from the flat and 8 MR penetrated from the percentage portion of it. So compare this to the same target who had 100 MR, but this time you have only 10% magic penetration. Then they would have 90 MR. That same 10% goes to 10 magic pen in the second example, whereas this same 10% only effectively had 8 in the previous example. So as you can see, the more flat magic penetration you have, the less effective percentage magic penetration is. Not to say that flat magic penetration is bad. It's just a fact, and you should know how it works, which is why I've included it. Now, however, with Arcane Knowledge, it's marginal. The increase isn't really something to worry about. However, with Void Staff, that's significant. 40% on top of the 10%, that's 46% magic penetration. That will obviously affect the graph that we saw up here. Now I'm going to do the same graph again, except it's assumed that you have 40% magic penetration on top of this flat magic penetration, and the 10% from Arcane Knowledge. So the next graph I'm going to show you, you'll have, let me write this down, you'll have 40% as well as 10% from masteries to give 46, sorry, not 56, 46% magic pen on top of any other magic penetration you may have, flat magic penetration. Obviously it's quite significant. We'll take a look at that now. There it is. Now, it's the same colors, same axes, same values on both graphs, except, as you can see, it goes from blue to some shade of orange. Dark shade of blue to dark shade of orange. Now, what's you have to notice is that it may be a dark shade of blue and light shade of orange, but that same 5% increase from before is now decreased. So I mean, anything beyond 20 magic penetration, this area, like just this vertical area right here, has seen a decrease in damage increase. So whereas before this area was, around 20% increased damage, Now it's only around 10-15% increased damage. So it's a 5% decrease in damage increase. That may be confusing. I'll try and explain again. Basically what's happening is that the flat magic penetration you have is decreasing the effectiveness of the void stuff's penetration. Therefore, the more penetration you have, the less effective the percentage penetration is, thereby decreasing the increase in total damage. I hope that made sense. If not, read through my post again. I do explain things better in words sometimes. Sometimes I explain them better on speech. I try to explain my best. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and ask. Now, what do these results mean? Well, this is my opinion, and it's all extrapolated from this data. It's your choice if you want to believe it, so that's your disclaimer before I continue. What I would say is, if you're planning to build the void stuff relatively early in a build, so going Sorc Shoes, Death Cap, void stuff, I would recommend taking the flat MR marks, because the 5% reduced damage early, it's extremely useful in surviving the laning phase. It gives you better opportunities to trade. You can trade more often, you can survive more, even helps against ganks, against some champions like Maokai maybe. So I'd be happy to get up that 5% extra damage early for the 5% reduced damage, and it gives up about 5% damage late game as well, because I'm giving up the magic pin marks. But the void stuff, early void stuff, can negate the fact that you're behind for mid game. Now, why am I saying this? Well, I am the author, and I wrote this post, and I've done all the math, and with the advantage I can tell you that that's what you should be doing because of the following calculations. So, what are the following calculations? I'm talking about ability power. Ability power scales every one of your abilities, usually if you're a mage, and it's what most people use to increase their damage late game and to scale well into late game. So I decided to take a look at how effective AP was. So I made this calculator. Should load up. There it is. Okay. Now, what this calculator does is that, and I include in the post as well, is it calculates the AP required to give you an X% increase. So if you have a base damage of, let's say, 180 on a spell, let's actually look up a proper spell here. Let's say Brand. Brand's cool. Let's go Brand. Brand's cool. That was not a joke. Completely unintentional. Alright, let's do Pillar of Flame. Let's say he's got 255 magic damage and 0.6. Okay. So he's got 255 damage, 0.6 ratio. Let's say he's got currently, let's say he's got a death cap and some extra AP, say 180 AP, just rough value here. If he wants to increase the damage of that Pillar of Flame by 5%, he has to get an extra 210.25 AP. The formula's in here if you want to see it. Just go click on this and go show hide this row. He's got to get 210 extra AP to increase the damage of that ability by 5% if he's already got 180 AP. That's quite a lot. That's about another death cap. That's an extra death cap on top of that. So that is quite significant. 210 AP, it costs a lot. Quite significant. However, same 5% increase, we can do that using magic penetration here. We can do the same damage increase using a few points of magic penetration, around 10 or so, and that gives you the same damage increase that you just calculated. Now, that is quite significant. I mean, you can see that it requires a lot of AP to increase your damage compared to magic penetration. A few points of magic penetration go a long way to increasing your total damage output. Once again, you can read the post for probably a better explanation. I want to get this video done as quick as possible, not to bore you guys. So, haunting Guise and Abyssal Scepter. So here comes the part where you guys tell me, haunting Guise is a pointless item, and I'm going to tell you, it sort of is. It gives you a really significant boost in damage. It's amazing. For less than 1600 gold, you get the damage increase equivalent to almost a death cap. And 1600 gold, that's the cost of a needlessly large rod. So instead of having a needlessly large rod, you can have the same damage, in fact, a bit more damage than needlessly large rod, as well as some extra HP, which, you know, kind of helps you survive. It's nice to have a bit of HP, I guess. And it costs less than a needlessly large rod. So it's a great item. You know, it's 1,400 gold, something like that. And it gives you so many stats, it's amazing for damage. However, it's a tough sell for me. I mean, convincing me to buy it, I wouldn't buy it because the build path is absolutely terrible. You can build it, sure, but that time you spent saving up to 1,500 or so gold to buy the Haunting Guise, the enemy could have bought a much more useful item. They could have bought a Abyssal Scepter, they could have bought a Death Cap, they could have bought a Zhonya's Hourglass much earlier, and those items contribute to a team fight more than a Haunting Guise would. A well-timed Hourglass active, you know, the aura from the Abyssal Scepter, the overall increase in AP from a Death Cap, all those things are much better than having a Haunting Guise. And just for that reason, it's a tough sell for me. I mean, pure damage wise, it's amazing. Every other way, it's not that great. So my suggestion to Riot and any designers, hopefully he may be watching this, is just, you know, give it an upgrade and make the upgrade have a significant amount of AP, and give it a damaging active or passive, because you don't want it to just be another flat AP increase item and magic penetration item. You want it to have, you know, something like makes you feel like it does damage, you know. Have an active, you know, not like this Fire Grasp because it already has that. I mean, just make it feel amazing, you know. Every time you land a spell, it has to feel like you had some extra effect, you know. Set them ablaze or something. Just give it an extra effect every time you pull off some spell damage. I think I said this post here. Give it something like Maladies or a Wit's End passive, except work it off spell damage. Make it feel like throwing your spells out there is rewarding, you know. You gotta be rewarded for buying this item because it is quite a risky buy if you don't snowball. Now, on the other hand, the other magic penetration item, Abyssal Scepter, is a very strong item. I've written an article on Abyssal Scepter's Death Cap in the past. It is on the old website and some of the links are slightly broken, so you can watch the video version. I've included the link in the post. Now, this item is amazing. It's relatively low cost. It's a full, you know, item that you'd have in your final build, and gives you an amazing boost in damage for your whole team, not just for yourself, as well as giving you resistances. I mean, I absolutely love this item. I think everybody should buy it, but that's just me. Now, we've got to the conclusion quite quickly here. What I want to say is that there's this very fine line between stacking AP, stacking magic penetration, stacking magic resist. Every game obviously has different factors involved, and you should change your build accordingly. But if you want my opinion on what I should or would run, it would be flat MR marks if I'm rushing a Void Staff early. As I said before, I'm willing to give up that damage and for that durability if I'm going to get that damage earlier late game due to the Void Staff. Or else I'll go magic penetration marks. Seals, just, you know, whatever. Mana regen, armor, whatever you're running. Magic resist glyphs, that's a standard. I'll take that on everyone. But if I'm going for the more offensive route with magic penetration marks, I'd take 6 flat and 3 scaling glyphs. Because if you want to counter the enemy's magic enemy's magic penetration, they'll likely have... okay, let me write this down. They'll likely have 8.55 magic penetration from marks. Hi, Jana. Okay, 8.55 magic penetration from marks. Likewise, you need to have this value to counter that. So, with 6 flat and 3 scaling, you get, I think, roughly 8.35 scaling. 8.35 flat MR at level 1, which increases later on to late game. So that's my setup for how I do my glyphs, because it gives you enough magic resist early on to counter the penetration, and you scale into late game as well, although not as much as 6 scaling. Sorry, as 9 scaling, I guess. But if I'm running flat MR marks, I'll also take flat MR glyphs, just to, you know, absolutely stack on that MR. As for quints, I'd take AP quints. It gives you enough AP and damage to justify choosing over magic penetration, provided you have reasonable AP ratios, which all mages should have. As for item builds, I'd say, you know, as I mentioned, Abyssal is incredibly strong item. I think everyone should buy it. Don't fall into the trap of stacking magic penetration. You have to understand that a death cap scales every point of AP you have. So I mean, it's an item that scales every item in the inventory, pretty much. And that's also an amazing item, so don't neglect death cap because of what you've seen here. Haunting Guise, as I mentioned, results in a significant damage increase, but it has to be sold later on, or not bought at all, because it simply doesn't bring enough utility or power to justify an item slot all by itself. Void Stuff, it's an important buy, don't ever skip it. It gives you an amazing damage increase. Buy it as soon as you see some people, you know, they start buying MR, so you should buy it as its third or fourth item. Gives you a very good damage increase. You can delay it a bit if you buy some magic penetration items, I guess, like Abyssal or Haunting Guise or Sorcerer Shoes, but don't leave it past your fourth or fifth item. Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you read my post, you'll see a couple more details, a couple more thoughts that I put in. Likewise, if you read the post and come to the video, you'll probably hear a couple of extra details. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I put a lot of work into this. I think it took me like 6 hours, I guess. There's a lot of things to be interpreted from here. There's a lot of things to take away. Don't take my word for it. Take a look at these numbers. You know, do the calculations yourself. See what you want to do. See what goals you have in the game. Adjust your build. Adjust your items according to that. And I wish you the very best of success in your games. Also, guys, I'll be running a giveaway if I hit 1k subscribers on YouTube. So I'm at what, 490, I think. I'll be hitting a giveaway if I get to 1k, and one as well if I hit 5k. My goal is to hit 5k by August, so help me make that happen. Once again, I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers, it's DiffTheEnder, and I'm signing out.